patriot love, in all thy Son's command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God, keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
I invite you to receive these words of invocation. On this day of celebrated accomplishment, we are filled with gratitude, thankful that our diverse paths have been brought together, thankful for the friends that have journeyed with us, for the families that have supported us, for dedicated faculty and committed administration. As we step off this stage and into the play of life, may our knowledge be coupled with wisdom that we might impact the world for the better. May we be filled with continued wonder and compassion that we might enrich the lives of those around us. Enable us to explore and embrace so that the play of life might resonate with peace. In the gift of your love we pray. Amen. You may be seated.
Mr. Chancellor, Mr. Vice Chancellor, members of the board, fellows, faculty and staff, family and friends, and graduands, welcome to the celebration of convocation at the University of Guelph. I'd also like to extend a special welcome this morning to our honorary degree recipient, Helen Mack Chang, who will be formally introduced to you in a moment. I'm Maureen Mancuso, the Provost and the Vice President Academic, and I'm privileged to have the honor of opening this ceremony on behalf of the university. And I would like to officially congratulate you, our graduands, on your momentous achievement. I hope you will join me in thanking the many people, family, friends, and mentors who have supported, encouraged, and assisted you in the pursuit of your studies. Today, we mark the end of one chapter of your lives and the beginning of a new one. You made it here today through years of effort and hard work. Now it's time to turn towards other goals and new challenges of increasing complexity and impact. Your journey of learning did not begin here at Guelph, nor does it end here today. If anything, it builds upon your experiences of the last few years to become more arduous, more enlightening, more productive, and more fulfilling. You came here to develop the possibilities and resources of your own minds. You came here to change your lives, to devote some time to learning essential skills and acquiring knowledge, to challenge yourselves and extend your capabilities. Here, in our community of scholars, you had the freedom to learn about the world and to learn about yourself. We hope you learned a great deal about how you will fit into and affect the world. We hope you see your path more clearly and that you see how your contributions on that path can lead to a better world. We have tried to help you prepare by opening your eyes to ideas you might not have encountered, cultures of which you were unaware, perspectives that complement and sometimes contrast with your own. We have tried to help you to think critically, to reject simplistic answers to complex questions, and to refuse the empty satisfaction of half-truths and partial solutions. Ultimately, though, we have shared with you one fundamental lesson. There is always more to learn. It's now up to you to start applying that lesson and those skills. We send you forth as representatives of the University of Guelph, and we know you will make us proud, and we hope you're proud to wear the Guelph name. As you probably noticed, even when you were first applying to universities, we eagerly call attention to the exploits of our graduates. Be one of those people whose accomplishments we trumpet. Be someone who makes a mark on the world, someone who demonstrates the power and the potential of higher education. Take this responsibility seriously, because to quote my favorite fake US president, the West Wing's Jed Bartlett, decisions are made by those who show up. So now I say to you graduates, flush with the pride and powers of the finest education we know how to provide, show up. Show up in your own lives and live them critically, live them wisely. Show up in the lives of others, family, friends, and strangers, and make them better, directly or indirectly, however you can. Show up in the world, not just as pictures on Facebook, but as someone who makes a difference, even if that difference is more difficult to discern and doesn't go viral on YouTube. Most especially, show up as active, aware, and caring citizens of your country, your city, your world. And that means tomorrow, vote in the provincial election. Wherever your future leads you, please don't forget that even though you may no longer be on campus, you are still a part of our community. Your association with Guelph, like your journey of learning, is lifelong. We hope you will feel welcome to return from time to time to share information about your accomplishments and your experiences with your fellow alumni, your former professors, and the future students who will follow in your footsteps. And so once again, I bid you welcome. Enjoy this ceremony, take pride in what it represents, and remember all of those who have helped to make this day possible. I offer you my personal congratulations and every best wish.
Mr. Chancellor, on the recommendation of the Senate of the University of Guelph, it is my great privilege to present to you Helen Mack Chang for the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa. Helen Mack is a human rights activist and a hero in Guatemala, a role born of her efforts to demand justice for the execution of her sister, Myrna Mack, at the hands of the Guatemalan military. Myrna Mack, a social anthropologist, died for speaking the truth on behalf of people uprooted by civil war. Her work spoke this truth in a country that did not allow research that revealed the oppression of its people. Prior to her sister's death in 1990, Ms. Mack was a businesswoman with no knowledge of the judicial system. Undaunted by extreme political oppression, she served as a private prosecutor in her sister's case and mobilized support from local and international communities to bring to justice not only the high-ranking officers who executed her sister, but also the military generals and masterminds responsible for her murder. The Myrna Mack case became the first human rights case in the history of Guatemala to be prosecuted. Rulings of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights forced the state of Guatemala to assume responsibility for the assassination and offer a formal apology to her family. The case triggered a series of reforms in state institutions, including the judicial system and the Guatemalan police services. Ms. Mack is the founder and president of the Myrna Mack Foundation, which is dedicated to advocating the rule of law in Guatemala and to fight against impunity. As a result of her work, she was appointed head of the Commission of Police Reform by the President of Guatemala in 2011. Her efforts have been recognized with honors from many national and international organizations, including the Right Livelihood Award in 1992. Ms. Mack shows us how a single individual's efforts can lead to fundamental change on a national level. She is an inspiration to citizens marginalized by political and cultural oppression, and to those of us fortunate enough to enjoy complete political freedom. In her work, we see how the power of "I can" conquers fear and overcomes hurdles that hinder equality and justice. I now ask you, Mr. Chancellor, to confer upon Helen Mack Chang the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa.
By the authority of the Senate of the University of Guelph, I admit you to the degree of Doctor of Laws. Congratulations. Helen Mack Chang will now deliver the convocation address.
Mr. Chancellor, Mr. Vice Chancellor, friends. Some years ago, I came to Guelph University for the first time. I remember learning of its motto, changing lives, improving lives, a motto that resonated with me on many levels. Sometimes later, when I learned that the university was granting me an honoris causa degree, I asked myself, why would they bestow such an honor upon me? My life changed forever on the night of September 11th, 1990. On that day, the Military Intelligence Service of the Guatemalan Army brutally murdered my sister, Myrna Mack. At the time of her murder, Myrna was conducting research about people who had been forcibly displaced from their communities as a result of the internal armed conflict. For those to you who may not be familiar with the history of my country, between 1960 and 1996, Guatemala experienced an internal armed conflict in which over 200,000 people died and hundreds of thousands more were displaced. Until the moment of my sister's death, I considered myself to be a normal person. I was a professional woman with conservative ideology who dedicated her life to working within the dominant socioeconomic structure. I lived a somewhat privileged existence, and my life took shape within the context of the social, political, economic, and cultural structures that have dominated Guatemala for decades and that have generated poverty, racial discrimination, social injustice, and marginalization for the indigenous majority. The violent death of my sister was a clarion call for me to learn about the other Guatemala, the Guatemala that is experienced by the majority of the country's inhabitants. As I searched to understand the reasons behind her violent murder, I learned about the academic work she as a social scientist was engaged in. It was through this work that Myrna contributed her energy and intelligence to improve the life chances of the people she worked with. I dedicated all my energy to seek justice for my sister's murder. In my quest for justice, I was forced to endure many of the same things that the majority of Guatemalans suffer on a daily basis: fear and self-censorship. But like others who have been victims of the armed conflict, my search for justice and truth also helped me to face my many difficult moments with courage. Along the way, we helped generate changes that improve some aspects of justice and human rights in my country. In my sister's case, we promoted the first criminal case in Guatemala history to investigate, prosecute, and punish the intellectual and material authors of human rights violations. In the case of members of the Security Department of the Guatemalan Army, in the end, a sergeant major was convicted as the material author of the crime, while a colonel was convicted as the intellectual author. The Myrna Mack case permitted us to identify a series of practice and legal ambiguities that contributed to impunity for violators of human rights. With a team of professionals at the foundation that carry my sister's name, we promoted legislative reform, approved in 1996 that created restrictions on the scope of the military justice system. Since then, members of the military accused of committing common crimes as well as human rights violations are now prosecuted by ordinary tribunals and not by the military justice system. Since the verdict was handed down in the Myrna's case, there have been criminal trials in a number of cases of grave violations of human rights, including for the murder of 2 American citizens, innkeeper Michael Devine and Diana Ortiz, a nun, and trials and convictions for the massacres in Chamán, Rio Negro, Dos R's, for the forced disappearance in El Jute, Gusanero, and in the cases of Fernando Garcia and Edgar Galito, for the murder of Monseñor Juan Gerardi, and more recently, for the genocide committed against the Maya and Ixil population. As a result of these criminal proceedings, a number of critical issues have become the subject of public debate. The investigations into these cases highlighted the need to dismantle the presidential general staff. During the course of the legal proceedings, we documented and denounced the abuse of the protective legal measure known as the amparo, and other legal tricks used to guarantee impunity, including malicious litigation. We denounced the use of threats and intimidation as well as corruption. We highlighted the absolute importance of the judicial independence, which led us to propose the judicial career law, the access to information law, and to demand transparency and publicity in the nominating commissions that select judicial and other authorities. The search for justice for my sister and the struggle against impunity that we began in 1990 has taught me that it's not sufficient to have good lawyers to litigate in the courts. I saw in large part impunity was possible because our institutions are weak and corrupt. Since then, we started to develop proposals to improve criminal investigations, which then led me to work closely to reform the police and security sectors. In 2011, I accepted the position of Presidential Commissioner for the Police Reform, which allowed me to observe the state from within and understand the inhumane conditions that police officers are forced to endure, and to advocate forcefully on behalf of the end to improve their material and professional conditions. You may think that my story is unique. That is nothing to do with you, but nothing could be farther from the truth. I was an ordinary person living an ordinary life when something extraordinary and tragic happened that affected me and my family. I had to make a choice. At some point in your lives, you will also have to make a choice. Perhaps in a dramatic context, but a choice nevertheless. About how you have lived your lives. Would you live your lives only in function of your own wants and desires? Or you will give your gifts and talents to improve not only your lives, but also the lives of others? You, as young people starting out in your professional lives, face an enormous challenge to change the world that exists outside these university gates, in Canada itself, or in other parts of the world where misery, hunger, lack of education, poor health, and sanitary conditions are the norm. You are part of the generation that faces the challenge of conquering new spaces in favor of humanity, promoting development, and creating new political and economic structures that can help us to claim victory over injustice. I would like to leave you with a final reflection about our nature as human beings and the form in which this sometimes forces us to walk upon perilous paths that test our capacity to discern between the good and the evil. These are the same paths that sometimes lead us to the abyss of malice, poverty of the spirit, and the betrayal of our values. Sometimes, we as individuals face critical moments in our life, and that is that we must choose. Do we take the path that leads us to consolidate those traits that make us human? Do we choose integrity, honesty, and solidarity even though we know we can lose battles? Or do we take the path that leads us to lose our dignity, our values, our virtue? Each of us make our own decisions, no one else. The murder of my sister was a watershed moment in my life. Her murder transformed me totally. It led me to battle against a world of irrationality, violence, a world that until that moment had been totally unknown to me. The search for justice changed my life. Even it led me to live experiences that little by little would shape a new existence for me. In this new role, I endeavor to improve our daily coexistence and to create a distinct Guatemala. My experience demonstrates that each one of us has the opportunity to change his or her life, improve the lives of others, to work toward a better framework for coexistence, and to develop new social arrangements that elevate our appreciation for humanity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helen, for those personal and inspiring remarks. Well, the moment has now arrived. Will members of the graduating class please rise? Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor to present to you these scholars who have fulfilled the statutory requirements laid down by the Senate of the University of Guelph that they may be admitted to their various and several degrees.
By virtue of the authority vested in me and in the University of Guelph, I hereby accept you for admission to your various and several degrees with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities appertaining thereto.
Will members of the graduating class please be seated?
Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to present the graduates to you. There will be impulses toward joy or surprise or bewilderment, and we don't want to suppress those, but we will have a fulsome round of applause after all of the graduates have been presented to you. Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor to present to you these scholars from the College of Social and Applied Human Sciences that they may be admitted to the degree of Bachelor of Applied Science Honors Program. Robbie Catherine Sherrill Velasky. Caitlin Nicole Bell with distinction. Samantha Caitlin Breezy with distinction. Adriana Carraza Torani with distinction. Olivia Didmars. Marley Emma Freeman with distinction. Erashiga Gabriepele with distinction. Brooke Jean Groombridge McLeod. Joshua Hale. Stacy Lamore with distinction. Christine McGovern. Elizabeth Randall with distinction. Sarah Jane Robb. Raven Ann Yvonne Romaine. Stephanie Stanko. Brittany Nicole Sturkenberg. Kendra Bailey Tapscott with distinction. Lindsay Nicole Webster. Samantha Ann He Wong. Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor to present to you these scholars from the College of Social and Applied Human Science, that they may be admitted to the degree Bachelor of Arts Honors Program. Maha Ali. Tyler Alexander Armstrong. Casey Baumler. Tyler James Barry. Susan Margaret Bolton. Christina Jennifer Campo with distinction. Julia Chaqueto with distinction. Jeffrey Chandler. Julia Danielle Clancy. Kara Lee Colborn. Maria Christina Constantino with distinction. Emily Corbett. Kevin Michael Crane. Amy Creedy. Alicia DeJong. Robin Courtney DeToro. Megan Alyssa Dorian. Allison Marie Featherstone. Jamie Leah Feliz. Corey Rachel Fenwick. Jacqueline Hope Fitzpatrick with distinction. Danny Michelle Gallo. Julia Jane Genovese with distinction. Laura Nicole Grant. That's the first one, and a faint one at that. Michael Grant with distinction. Kendra Hatch. Thomas Heeman. We all know Tom, so he's getting a bit of an extra push across the stage. Brian Ross Hendrick. Nicole Hodgson. Olivia Sue Horrell. Matthew Nicholas Joyce. Megan Campois. Emma Jean Koopstra. Nolan Michael Koyata. Jenna Catherine Lee. Julia Catherine Loretto. Heather Ashley Luz. Alexandra Catherine Magahay. George Mason. Natalie Ann Maxwell. Alana Taylor McComb with distinction. Andrew Thomas McCormick. Kelvie Anne Marie McLaren with distinction. Johanna Mebratu. Steve Monahan with distinction. Allison Marie Nesbitt with distinction. Oleg Lubomirov Nikolov. Brittany Margaret O'Connor. Christopher Orr. Stephanie Rose Osborne. Elena Alexandra Pirshanovsky. Kelsey Victoria Rogers. Mackenzie Jean Ross with distinction. Rachel Marie Sadura. Sarah Ann Sawatsky. Elisa Scarpelli. Jason Nicholas Schmidt. Madison Schnarr. Elena Scott. Melissa Ann Scholdeis. Shannon Elizabeth Stevens. Ann Thompson. Sarah Grace Todorsky with distinction. Jaylena Ariel Williamson. Sarah Karen Irene Wojciechowski. Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor to present to you these scholars from the College of Social and Applied Human Sciences that they may be admitted to the degree Bachelor of Arts General Program. Yael Jordan Algrante. Kelsey Jamie Anderson. Simon Bernath with distinction. Stephen Boyd's degree is awarded posthumously and is being accepted by his brother Kevin and cousin Lisa. Thank you both for being here. Roxandra Capello. Alexandra Morgan Ballantyne Church. James Douglas Coulter. Bethany Kathleen Cudmore with distinction. Alana Christine Delory. Stephen Denalo. Catherine Mary Dion. Leah Elizabeth Ditchfield. Stephanie Louise Fertnig. Sarah Marie Harvey. Eve Margaret Johnston. Alexandra Nicole Keddy. Julia Leveber. Carter Graham Linton. Wendy Frances Marshall. I feel a little excited myself. Kaylee Muse Kahn. Arnell Moraine. Alexandra Fatima Neshi. Jessica Gale Reed. Sarah Marie Schaefer. Alicia Nicole Thompson. Garrett Lee Tribble. Shelby Marissa Weiss. Rachel Westerhoek with distinction. Heather Jean Zahara. Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor to present to you these scholars from the College of Social and Applied Human Sciences that they may be admitted to the degree Bachelor of Science Honors Program. Ayelet Julia Friedman with distinction. Heather Irene Morris with distinction. Samantha Allison Pepper. Mitchell Henry Thomas. Brett Anthony Van Beek. Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor to present you this scholar from the College of Social and Applied Human Sciences that she may be admitted to the degree Bachelor of Science in Environmental Sciences. Cassia Diane Knox. Thank you for your patience. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating these scholars.
How about you give it up one more time for the dean, who did a great job with all your names? Mr. Chancellor, I would ask you to confer the various and several degrees on the graduates listed in the program, but unable to be present at this ceremony.
By virtue of the authority vested in me and in the University of Guelph, I confer the various and several degrees in absentia on the graduands not present.
Mr. Chancellor, so, you did it. You've got your parchment, the very piece of paper that proves it, and you think you're good to go. But I've got some really bad news for you. I am the only thing that stands between you and the rest of your lives. And I can go on talking for hours and hours and hours. But seriously, I don't want to be long. I just want to do 3 things. The first is, I'd like you to think back. Think back for a moment. Think of all of the things that you have done here, all of the things you've learned, all of the people that you've met, all of the friends you've made. What would you say was the most fantastic thing you've done whilst you've been here? What was the worst thing that happened to you whilst you were here? What was the stupidest thing that you did when you were here? So from up here, it's absolutely fantastic because I ask those questions, and when I say, what was great, shadow goes across your face, you can see the smile, the glint in the eye, something that you really remember that was cool. I say something that wasn't so good, and you sort of half frown and probably think of an assignment that you either didn't do or didn't hand in on time or something else. And then I say something that was stupid, and then you divide into 2 types. Those of you that have this sort of twinkle, as if to say, yes, that was really good. And then those of you that are looking in absolute horror and think, he's been creeping me on Facebook. So why do I say this? Well, it's because those memories, those moments that you remember, are really important. Hold on to them, because much to the chagrin of those of us here on the stage, your professors, it's very unlikely that everything you've been taught in classes you'll remember. In fact, probably the vast amount of it has already evaporated. If that's so, what do you carry away from here? Well, I hope you carry away much more than a parchment, much more than a string of notes or a series of files. I hope you carry away from here what it means to be part of a society, part of a group, and of course, because we're the University of Guelph, a part of a herd that cares about the world around you, and most especially cares about the people around you. So I said there were three things. The first was to look back, and I know that you're all incredibly intelligent. You have that piece of paper that proves it, and I bet you're all thinking, he's going to say, and look forward. Well, I'm not. Actually, what I am going to do is I'm going to challenge you. I want to challenge you to be involved, to be engaged in the critical, social, political, and humanitarian issues that face this world. I want you to find that moment like Helen did and work tirelessly for tolerance and for understanding. And when you see intolerance or people failing to understand, I don't want you to be angry. I want you to turn round and use the skills that you have learned here to stamp out injustice, to fight for those people who cannot, to speak for those individuals who have lost their voices, and above all, to care for the people and this planet around you. Because it is only by caring that you will truly make a difference in this world. And sad to say, we really need you. In a world that is riven by injustice, that is challenged by dogma and prejudice and disadvantage, our absolute hope is you. Do something. Do something. I don't care whether it is taking on the leadership role in some of these incredibly daunting challenges that face the world. Or perhaps, more importantly, make the decision today that every day for the rest of your life, you will do something to make at least one other person's life better. And how do you do that? Well, it's very simple. I don't know if you've noticed, but there is an astonishing human trait that only humans among all animals has. And that is that if you smile at somebody, no matter how miserable they are, no matter how grotty the day is, the problems they've got, the issues they're facing, if you smile at them and keep smiling, they cannot help but smile back. And in doing so, you change the mood, you change their lives, and you make your own better. Find ways to include people of all ages and stages, all genders and races in everything that we do to make this a better planet. So, take the parchment. Take the values and ideals that you have learned here. Take your friendships that will last a lifetime. And get out of here. Those of us that are left behind will be watching with great pride. I did say that there were three things: to look back, to challenge you, and the third is that I'd like to ask a favor of you. As you represent the future, I would really like to take a selfie of you to represent the future, to know that I had, and we all here on the stage, had a small part of that. So just forgive me. Following convocation, the Dean has made arrangements for there to be a reception in the atrium at the Science Complex. So far, the evil weather that they had promised us seems to have held off, and I hope you get a chance to take lots of pictures. Please take them because they will form part of that cadre of memories that you will treasure over time. They will be the things that you bring back on Alumni Weekend to laugh with each other about what you looked like at convocation. And as we have Alumni Weekend coming up in a couple of weeks, we have people who are coming back 60 years after graduation. And I'm sure they'll do just as you will and say, "You haven't changed a bit." Take lots of pictures, but please would you remember to return your gowns either to the tent behind here, or you can return them in the Science Complex atrium. And I have one other favor to ask. We're doing 20 of these ceremonies this week, and that means there's a host of people outside waiting to come in. And if it's raining, they'll be quite bedraggled and very keen to get in here quickly. So please, after the platform party has left, would you mind exiting through these doors at the front so that you're not crushed by the people coming in? I celebrate and salute your successes, and I wish you every success in the future. Thank you.
Convocation is dismissed.